Okay. I don't see it yet. There we go. Okay. Good evening. Still a little weird. Hey, Vivian. So good evening. Still a little weird to say evening. I'm used to saying morning since we've been doing it. We did it early in the morning, 8 a.m. And so we did a poll yesterday because last week we had to do it at 8 p.m. We had some, I do our devotion here in our kitchen, and it's right beside our patio door. And so we had some yard work done, as Shonda has been chronicling on our Facebook page. And the guys didn't get finished quite as fast as they thought they were going to, so we had to switch it up because they decided they were going to work Sunday morning. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to speak over the equipment that they were using and all that. So I think it was all for benefit though, because we actually had a lot more people watching last week than normal. I mean, I know that a lot of people go and go back and listen to the videos and watch them and participate later on in the evenings, and in the week. But we had a lot more people that were actually there online, live last week at 8 p.m. So we took a poll yesterday evening, and the votes had it that the majority would rather it happen at 8 p.m. So we are going to be on a trial run for the next couple weeks. I don't know how long yet. I guess we'll kind of feel that out and see if it's something that's going to be better for everybody. See if we can get some more participation, and hopefully it'll be good for everybody. So we're going to try this at 8 p.m. for the next little bit. If you're on here, I know we got a few people that are actually here with me. If you're on here, like it, share it, so that more people can see, and we'll get started in this discussion that we've been on for the last couple weeks. So we started, let's see, the beginning of the year, the last Sunday of 2019. We started setting the tone for this with a devotion. All of these are on Facebook and on our YouTube channel, so if you missed any, you can go back and watch them. They're all really good stuff that's going to help you go through this year. But we started with No Place Here, and how we're going to set the tone for our 2020 and our 2020s with letting the enemy know that there is no place for him. And in your life, in your new year, in your decade, in whatever God has called you to do. And then I started out with the first Sunday with See It Through. And we've kind of been talking for the last 3 weeks about how to see it through, and I'll kind of go briefly over that. So the first week we went in Joshua, and we'll kind of continue in Joshua. We did last week, and we'll kind of continue in it again tonight. But was Go After It. It's one of my favorite books, or one of my favorite passages in the entire Bible. When we're talking on this kind of conversation about going after and then doing anything, stepping out and walking by faith, doing anything that God has called you to. And so we started talking about how that to see it through, to see through what God has called you to do in 2020 and in your personal life, whatever that may be, whether it's reading your Bible more, whether it's praying more, whether it's fasting or serving, or whether it is going back to school or saving more money or getting out of debt or eating better or taking better care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually. No matter what it is, how to see it through. And one of the first things that you got to do is you got to make up your mind and just go after it. You got to be completely intentional about what God has laid on your heart or impressed upon you to do and to see done in 2020 and in the decade of the 2020s. And so last week we continued that conversation with Joshua chapter 1, and it was be strong and courageous. And really what we did last week, what we discussed, and it's still on the Facebook page if you scroll on down. But really, when you think about it, we were just killing fear and discouragement by making sure that we are resolved and that we are alert. Be strong and courageous. That's how you're going to see it through. And tonight we're kind of going to stay in that same verse that we were in last week. It'll be Joshua 1:7 again. And this week we're going to talk more about and kind of kill the distractions. And I know that is something that we really probably don't want to talk about. I mean, if we're honest, nobody likes to talk about distractions, especially if you're a procrastinator. So yeah. So let me address the elephant in the room. I am a lot less furry tonight than I have been in the weeks past and months past. I actually, praise report, I actually started a new job in the morning, which requires me to, actually I'll be shaving the rest of my face, down to, just a goatee probably after this video. But, I figured, I'd go ahead and start trying to get used to it. So this, I'm not a guest speaker. This is still me. It's just a lot less beard here. So, my kids did surprisingly well. I was kind of worried that they wouldn't be, because none of them have seen me with this little facial hair ever, I don't think. I think I had more than this when Joel was born. So it's a little odd, but yeah, I figured I'd go ahead and address that. I know Shonda posted something on our Facebook page, and maybe a few of you are just watching just to kind of see what my face looks like. But anywho, let's continue this conversation about how to see it through. So first let me just ask you, how are you doing in whatever it is God has called you to do in this new year? How are you doing in saving money? How are you doing in serving? How is it going? Like how is it going really? How are you doing in it? How is the diet going? How is the exercise routine going? How is if you're starting school or going back to school for after some years or something like that? How is that going for you? How is reading the Bible all the way through going? How is your prayer life going? How is it going? I really want to know. Drop a comment, let me know how, and if you need prayer, send us a message. We want to pray with you and agree with you, because that's what this is all about, is we want to help you and walk this thing with you. We want to see you grow and to prosper, and we ultimately want to see you achieve what God has called you to achieve in this year. But, how are you doing? I really want to know that. So drop us a comment, leave us a message, let us know how you're doing or how we can pray for you. And so yeah. But next is we're going to talk about distractions, and I'm going to read the verse. We're going to kind of piggyback off of where we were last week. We're going to be in Joshua 1. And Joshua 1 verse 7 says this: "And only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded thee." And here's the part that we're gonna kind of sit on is, "Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper wherever you go." So turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. So what God is telling Joshua here is, basically when he opens up this chapter, he tells Joshua, Joshua, my servant Moses is dead. And you're going to get these people, you're going to, basically you're going to, lead them into the promised land, and to, take them into everything that I have for them. And I'm going to be with you just as I was with Moses. And he goes on to tell Joshua, be strong and courageous, like we talked about last week. But then he goes on and he tells him something like this right at the end of that: "Be strong and very courageous, and observe all the law which I gave Moses." So do everything that I told Moses to do. And then turn not from it to the right hand or to the left. Don't look away to the left hand or to the right hand. Basically what God's telling him is, don't get distracted. Because when we get distracted, when there is something that requires our attention, that requires us to be intentional, like we talked about a few weeks ago, and we start doing whatever it is, whatever we were just talking about, that you've started, whether it's going back to school, praying, fasting, reading, serving, being intentional about your health, your weight, your whatever it is, you cannot afford to be distracted. If you really want to achieve it, if you really want to see it through, you cannot afford to be distracted. You've got to have focus. You've got to be able to discern what is important and what is not important. And therein lies another hard thing when it comes to distractions, is sometimes distractions can even be important things that we give attention to at the wrong time. I'll say it again. Sometimes distractions can even be important things that we give attention to at the wrong times. Example, and this one Shonda gave me, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but I was just asking her, what is an example of this? And she said distracted driving, and which is perfect, because you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden, you've got cars going to the right hand and cars going to the left. You got to pay attention to traffic signals and stoplights, and you got to pay attention to where your exit is or what's going on all around you. And all of a sudden, you get an email or you get a call or you get a text. It may be important. It may be your boss emailing. It may be your spouse or your kids calling you or texting you. It may be whatever it is may be going on that phone, but it is more important that you pay attention to the road, because it's life or death, than it is the phone, the text, the call, the email. It's important, but what you're doing, driving, is more important at the time. So sometimes distractions can even be important things that we give attention to at the wrong time. So I challenge you to examine yourself. What has been distracting you? What has been, keeping you from, if you've not been doing so well and the thing that you've set out to accomplish in this new year, what has been the distraction? What's been causing you to keep from it? Has it been just you procrastinating, and maybe that's your distraction? Maybe is it something that's not important? Sometimes I think it's hard to, especially like when you really are trying to get into a groove of studying or praying or fasting, whatever it is. When you're trying to get into that kind of groove, one of the hardest things to do is break habits and distractions that you don't realize because you do them daily. When you want to read your Bible more or pray more, one of the hardest things to break is TV or phone or whatever it is. And so some of you, maybe you just need to examine your life. What am I doing that is not so important that I can cut it out for a certain amount of time that I can achieve what I'm called to do in this year? Or maybe some of you need to examine your life and say, okay, I have my priorities. This is important to me, but this is important to me as well. And you need to be able to examine and see where I need to give attention to this and attention to this. What time can I pay attention to this thing that is important, and what time can I give to this that I know I need to do in 2020 or in this decade? So maybe you need to just examine, really sit down and pay attention to what is important and what do I need to do to be able to achieve this, to see it through. Because, if we're looking at this as a biblical example, and there's more I'm going to give you, that, focus is not just, singularly to this verse. Proverbs 4, I'll read like 3 verses here and just to kind of show you that it kind of is a recurring theme. And then, again, another scripture is Proverbs 4:25, and I'm going to read through like 27. Let thine eyes look right on. Look right on, and let thine eyelids look straight before thee. Be focused. And 26, ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. So focus on where you're going, and so that you may be able to accomplish it. That sounds like the first message of this See It Through that we were in. And then here, 27 says this, turn not to the right hand, nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. So doesn't that sound, very familiar to what we're talking about with Joshua? Is turn not to the right hand, nor to the left, but be focused so that you can accomplish and establish the thing that you are going to do. Focus. Hebrews 12 tells us, it's talking about run our race with endurance, but, a few verses down, I think it's like verse 3, tells us to look to Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. When we're doing anything, we got to have focus. When we are walking this walk of faith, we have to focus on Jesus. We have to focus on His Word. We have to focus on the thing that He's called us to do. He's telling Joshua, focus on the thing that I told Moses to do. And you will be, and then He goes on to tell him that you may prosper, so that you may be, have success at this thing. So I encourage you tonight to focus, to kill and get rid of any distractions that is going to keep you from achieving and accomplishing what you are called to do in this new year and what God has called you to do in this decade. No matter how big or how small it may seem to you, if God laid it on your heart, it's important to Him. He wants to see you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. And in every area, whatever He's called you to do, it's important to Him, and it should be important to you. And so that's where I encourage you tonight is, examine yourselves. Really look at yourself and say, where am I distracted at? What is keeping me? Maybe it's the habit thing I talked about. Maybe it's something that it's just a bad habit that you just need to break, that you don't even realize you're doing. You don't realize that, how much time you watch TV, or how much time you sit on your phone, or how much time you do XYZ, whatever it is to you. And then, you need to say, okay, I'm going to be intentional about it, and then I'm going to be resolved. I'm going to make up my mind. I'm going to be strong and courageous, and I'm going to be alert to this, and I'm going to see this through, and then I'm going to kill it, kill that distraction. And then maybe you've got something that you have that has to take some real precedence. It really is important, but you give attention to it at the wrong time. Like we talked about with driving. Driving is more important than answering that phone call, that text, or that email. Maybe there's some things in your life that need to take precedence. They need to be important. They need to be things of value. But you need to learn and examine, when can I give this the attention that it needs and still be able to not be distracted when I need to do this, when I need to study to go back to school, or pray, or to read, or to fast, or to go work out, or to pay attention to what I'm putting in my body, or to cook right, or to go and see that doctor, or to talk to that person, whatever it is. Maybe you just need to examine yourself and figure out what is important and when that thing should be important. That's a real question. When it should be important to you. Hey, I hope that this has really encouraged you. That's really all I have for the night. These devotions have been really short. If you want to catch up on any of these, they are all on our Facebook page if you'll just scroll down. And they're also, I think the majority of them are on our YouTube channel, which is Grace Descending Church, so you can go and find them there too. If you're walking this thing with us, because we're like I shared last week, we're walking this thing too. We are seeing this thing through on our end as well. If you want to encourage us, send us a message, but we would also love to know how you're doing walking this out, seeing this thing through, whatever God has called you to do in this new year and this new decade. We want to know how you're doing in it. I want to be able to pray with you and for you, and I want to be able to encourage you, maybe shoot you a text or a message throughout the week just to encourage you to keep going. So if you would, drop us a comment, tell us what you're doing, how you're doing it, or send us a message if you really need prayer. We really want to be able to encourage you. Also, if you are in the Leland area, I've felt this for the last little bit about this video tonight. If you're in the Leland, Wilmington area around here and you don't know who we are, send us a message. We want to get to know you. We want to get acquainted with this area. We are a new church plant here. Or if maybe you are watching from wherever you're watching and you say, I want to be a part of your ministry, whether that is given or I want to move there and help you plant this church, get up with us, connect with us, and let's get going, because I believe that this is going to be the year that we see God do some amazing things in our ministry and in your life, and the more people that we can get connected with and pray for, the better. So that's all I've really got to say for tonight. I'm going to close in prayer, and I'll see you guys next week. God, I thank you for today. I thank you for all you've given us, all you've done for us. I thank you for the opportunity to open your word, God, to be able to read it and to be able to take what you have said, God, and apply it to our lives. I thank you for the opportunity to be able to share it with your people. God, I ask that you would touch each and every person that watches this video, whether it's now or in the future, God, no matter how they watch it, God, that you would just encourage them, God, that you would just remove every distraction. Show them and illuminate every distraction, God, whether it be things that are of importance or things that are meaningless, God, that you would just show them what they need to cut and what they need to fix, God, that you may be able to help them see through, God, what you've called them to do in this year. God, that they would prosper in it, God, and that you would just give them the strength and the endurance that they need to get through this. God, I ask that you would touch each and every person, God, as we go into this week. Help us, Lord God, to accomplish what you have called us to accomplish. Be with us, God. Go behind us and go before us in Jesus' name. Guys, I love you. I'm praying for you. I will see you next week.